Merchandise exports continue to be a bright spot in Utah's economic landscape, reaching a state record of nearly $19 billion in the year 2011. Joining us today to talk about a recent trade mission to Vietnam trying to extend those exports is Lew Cramer. He is the president and CEO of World Trade Center Utah. Lew, thanks very much for being with us.
Delighted to be here. Always a proud strategic partner of the Salt Lake Chamber.
And we're glad to have that relationship. So my first question is, why Vietnam? That seems like an interesting place to go on a trade mission. What's the connection there? What's the advantage?
First of all, I had no idea how big Vietnam is. Its population is almost 90 million people, 95% of whom are literate. They're excited about doing business, and they like Americans. They're the second fastest growing economy in China, in Asia, and they are open for business with America.
Second to China, I would guess.
Second to China in economic growth.
Are they a good fit for Utah businesses that are looking to do business outside of the United States? Do they want what we have to offer? Is it a good partnership there?
Very much so. Utah has a broad range of both goods and services to offer. And on this trade mission, we had about 20 individuals representing companies in the water remediation area, in infrastructure services, aviation, education, all the kinds of things that a developing nation like Vietnam really wants to have. And they trust a state like ours. I mean, they all know California, they all know New York and Texas, but they're looking for other opportunities. We have about 25,000 Vietnamese Americans, Vietnamese Utahns here in the state, so it's a great fit.
Do you have some other trade missions coming up? What's on the docket?
We certainly do. This state is booming in exports because we're booming in getting out and being part of the international arena. We will be going in June to Japan and Korea. We're going in September to Indonesia. We're going also perhaps to Russia in September, and we're looking maybe a Mideast trip at the end of the year, coupled also with a Brazil-Chile trip this next month, where the mining industry, which Utah obviously excels in, will be featured as well.
Mm-hmm. The overall export numbers from our state are increasing, setting new records each of the last 3 or 4 years, almost $19 billion, as I mentioned last year. But still not a high percentage of Utah businesses that export. So there's still a lot of room for growth there. How do we make the connection between opening channels to places like Vietnam and other places where you have trade missions and getting Utah businesses to actually take that step to export their goods and services?
Marty, that is the great question. It's what we work on day in and day out with the Salt Lake Chamber. How do we remind people, business executives, that 95% of the world's customers are outside of the United States, and that this global competitiveness really is alive and well. And Utah is, the companies that are already out there expanding and seeing international success, many of them say, hey, don't tell our competitors we're doing gangbusters in Japan or wherever it is. But the reality is, with just about 1% of Utah companies exporting, there's a huge opportunity to expand that. And day in and day out, we work with the Chamber, with the Governor's Office, with the U.S. Department of Commerce, with EDC Utah, to ensure that Utah business leaders know the opportunities out there and help them do it. We're a nonprofit, as we say, to make Utah companies profitable in international marketplaces.
And of course, Utah exports mean high-paying,
longer lasting, and higher skilled jobs.
Utah jobs.
Utah jobs.
Utah jobs. Utah exports mean Utah jobs.
And we're leading the nation in that kind of growth. We want to continue to do it because that's where the opportunities are for ourselves and for our kids.
And if your business is interested in expanding its range and looking to export goods or services, you can find Lew Cramer and his excellent team on the web at WTCUT.com.